Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is internationally renowned American artist and author and my very good friend, Michele Oka Doner. Michelle's creativity is fueled by a lifelong study and appreciation of the natural world. Welcome, Michele. So, Michele, some 14 years ago, you and I sat down in Midland to have an interview. It's rare I do a second one, but here we are 14 years later in the predecessor program, on Common Sense with Junia. So we have perspective here. We have the rare occasion to talk about it. What could I note? I can say from my side, but what do you notice about yourself that is different from who you were 14 years ago?
That's a great question, because even though I might be different than I was 14 years ago, I find the world is even more different.
Yes.
And 14 years ago, many of the things I think about and many of the situations I find one has to cope with today didn't exist 14 years ago. So I'd say the overriding change is dealing with a world that is moved on, that the values have changed, a younger generation has a different sense of how to dress, what manners are, all of that. So you're living your life in a less formal way. There are fewer boundaries, thanks to social network. So we're navigating in a different sense quicker. It's faster paced.
So do you find you have to guard your time differently?
I find that I feel open and welcoming to whatever's coming. So I don't say that the changes are, how do I say it, negative, or the world isn't the way I like it. Instead, I say it's fine for them. I'm still going to do certain things my way, like chop the ginger for my tea this morning instead of buying an electric emulsifier. So I still need the connection to working with my hands. In fact, I heard an extraordinary story many years ago in Syria, in Aleppo. I was traveling with Mickey Wolfson, who has a great collection of textiles, as well as the Wolfsonian collection of design and decorative arts. And he was looking for weavings and embroideries. Couldn't find a thing. And I recalled when we used to have tablecloths, damask cloth from Damascus. So it was a very famous center.
Yes.
Nothing. So we're invited to dinner in one of the wonderful homes, and first thing he said to the hostess was, "Where are all the embroideries, Miriam?" "Oh, Mickey," she said, "that's easy. I can tell you what happened." She said, "In my grandmother's day, everybody embroidered, and all of the nervous energy came out of the end of their fingers, and there was no depression." She said, "Today, nobody embroiders and everybody takes pills."
I am taking that right in.
That is so profound.
Yes.
So the chopping of, back to chopping my ginger, cutting things myself, lifting, moving, and not depending on anybody to do the simple tasks of a day and making them simple and celebrating the simplicity of a life that could be so complicated, but I haven't allowed it to be.
What I'm thinking about is, I wonder if one needs to be creative to have a sense of wholeness or non-depression.
We're all creative. It's some people's energies have been misplaced, misdirected, or they can't get back in touch. But certainly there are enough self-help books and websites to find your inner anything.
Yes, or create it. What do you think the tasks are for you at this stage of life?
The tasks have shifted. You know, I'm still moving forward, but I also think that the responsible thing to do is to shape the way I leave this planet. So, you know, I've got an archive I built since I've seen you. I built a special place for it. I've been talking to 2 universities who want it about where to place it. This is responsible. You don't just leave behind all kinds of things, thousands of books. I just sold one last summer to the Rijksmuseum where it should be because it turned out it's early photography. So I'm taking responsibility to place things, and one of my sons thanked me. He said, "Mom, we never would have known what it was and what to do with it." So you can do this at some point. I didn't do that, wasn't thinking about it 14 years ago.
Oh, interesting, Michele. What are the values you'd like your son, or really grandchildren, to take from you, recognizing that the world has changed and they will grow up in an even more different world than we have now?
You know, they already have a quality that I find will take them through a lifetime. They're self-motivated. They have things to do when they wake up, quote unquote, projects. They're excited to begin to return to what they were working on the day before. They explore, and they have what is the greatest thing anybody could have, aggressive curiosity.
You think you're born with it?
No, I think that everybody, again, it's a birthright. I think things get lost, things get put away, and you forget where they are. Everybody has the right to curiosity. It doesn't cost anything. Now, certainly if you're hungry, it doesn't help to be thinking about why that bug is falling over the leaf and the other one is hanging on, and examine it. That's true. But given that, you know, the world's bigger problems moved aside, you know, for people who have the ability to have a little bit of time to think and play, life's a big sandbox.
You know, I think you have to live with uncertainty. If you're comfortable with uncertainty, you can play in creativity. It's kind of like you were saying when we did this wonderful just now, we were working on the Michigan State fish figures, and that not everything works out, right?
Right.
And in that is sometimes the learning.
And comfort is really not a goal.
What is the goal, would you say? What are other goals that are useful to you?
That's an interesting question. My goals are always in small modules, you know, to finish a certain body of work I've set out to do, to then examine the next thing that I'm interested in, to read over the summer a certain, you know, number of books I've set out. They're not grand. I'm somebody who has woven my life more as a tapestry, so there's threads. Some of them are like hemp, and the other ones are golden.
And silk.
And silk, yes.
Right.
So that's, I don't have never set out the big goal. I think that's something that's like the huge mountain, you know. If you keep climbing hills and then, you know, foothills, and then you keep going, you find yourself on top of that mountain when you get there and look back.
Interesting. What kinds of books are you drawn to?
I read the best book over the summer. I read the biography of Alexander Humboldt. And I found out that it's called The Invention of Nature. So he grew up and he saw systems, but nobody used the word nature. Nobody thought that the trees were related to the way the river flowed, by the way their roots held the banks. He saw the connectedness of everything. And he grew up in a very strict home in Germany, and he really wasn't allowed to pursue what he wanted to. So he became a miner and fell in love with geology. So there's somebody who struggled in the face of being repressed completely and did what he was supposed to, but made that even, cooked that up into a great stew. And then when his parents passed, he took his inheritance and went out the door and traveled the world and saw things and sent things back and wrote, and he was ready. He set the stage. It was such a brilliant, admirable book. So I'm sitting at a lecture on publishing with two very well-known New Yorkers about 6 months ago. And they said, oh, it's not dead. Books aren't dead. This strange book has sold 70,000 copies in its first few months. And they said it's Alexander Humboldt. And this was not a crowd that would sit under trees.
Yeah.
So I blurted out, oh, it's wonderful. It's a great book. So there you go. Publishing is not dead. Actually, what's dead is mass market.
As publishing.
Yes, mass market everything is.
I feel the whole culture is in transition. We've had a lot of choppiness in the public arena of late, but I think we're going to start talk about strands, put strands together and refabricate the society in some way. I don't know which way, but I have a feeling more towards some sense of continuity rather than just
so.
harmony.
We're in a paradigm shift. There's no doubt about it.
What do you sense?
Same thing you just said. Where things are neither here nor there, but we had to let go of the old, and we have somebody that's in the White House who understood to do that, and that's what he's doing, for better or for worse, but he is doing it. And we needed a house cleaning, or he wouldn't be there, certainly. So that is, let it happen. It's happened before in this country. We've had other presidents who've come in to get rid of the Washington elite, Andrew Jackson. We've had a lot of this.
Right.
I don't know why everybody is so rattled.
Just reflects the culture.
Yes.
Culture changes, the politicians change, all towards that. You have worked in so many different media. Mm-hmm. Is it opportunity, it's the small step where you say, done enough in bronze, want to experiment in something else? How do you allocate your time, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I don't say I've done enough of this, I should do. It's kind of organic. If I find something that interests me, I try to squeeze it in among large projects. Sometimes large projects take all my time for months, and then I rebel, and I want to do some small things that are very satisfying because I can finish them in a week or even in a month instead of years.
Yes.
But all of the projects have all the scales engage me because that's life.
Variety.
Variety, all the different things. We don't have just a spoon. We have a spoon, a fork, of this, of that. Everything has variety. And so why would I only want to do one thing? For example, in a rectangle that gets framed. I've never understood why the art world, and I do know why. If you have a category, it's easier to digest
or
for
sell.
Other people. Yes, easier to commodify.
And it's culture too. People are used to that. And it's portable.
It's portable. Yeah, not today.
Well, I don't know. One of the things that I struggle with is my sort of fascination with the device. Mm-hmm. As I was saying, I was watching Davos, yesterday about some of the what the people were saying on a certain panel. And I am setting myself the goal of not restraining it, but reframing it as a source that doesn't run me, but that I use like a library.
Yes, it is. It's a resource.
And I remember when I was just really young, I went to the library and the card catalog, and you can go up the stairs, and I was like really just entranced by the whole thing. And then eventually it precipitates and you have form and you can manipulate it. And when I first got on the internet, I thought, oh God, back to the library again. There's all this possibility. But now I struggle with private time. I want private thinking time, private reading time, private everything. Have you ever had anything like that? Have you ever come to a solution to that?
Well, I do stop it at about 7 every evening, 7:15, 7:15. People know I don't get back to them. I will check it if I have a very early appointment that is tentative, but then it's less than 60 seconds. I'll allow myself to look. I just glance. And I don't answer things. And I'm amazed people will email me on a Sunday for something that
But wait till Monday.
Yeah, no, that has to go to press. And on Monday after, it's like, wait a minute, So the weekend thing, the day of rest has been eroding, as we said earlier, but it's totally gone. There's no sense of it anymore, but I do.
How do you allocate time, or how do you handle what I call refreshing your brain, refreshing your body, refreshing yourself, so you've reconsolidated so the energy surge can come through again?
Well, for example, New Year's Day, I was the first one to wake up, so I threw on a t-shirt and I covered myself, leggings, and went out the door, and I texted people, let me know when you get up and I'll tell you where I am. So I walked. So I had a great time. I was on the beach. Then I walked. Somebody met me at a bridge that I liked, the 29th Street whitewashed walking bridge. Had a quick lunch. Then I kept walking. Then a friend came by and he said, Michele, I'm going out on my boat. You want to go out on the boat? I said, sure, I'll go out on the boat. So I went for a boat ride. So I left at about 8:30 in the morning, and I didn't get home till about 7. Just walking. So I did about 10 miles, had a boat ride. It was great. I felt so good. It was very freeing.
And in the course of the week or the month, how do you do that?
I still do that. I can just leave if it's a summer day and it's light out, I leave early and start walking down Broadway and take Broadway. It cuts through all these interesting neighborhoods. You can go through, it used to be the old flower district, the old fur district, the antiques district,
right.
Little India. It's changed, but still it's the old Indian Trail.
Yes.
It cuts a diagonal right through the city.
One of the things you taught me years ago, when we were walking around Miami Beach, we went over to my grandmother's house, we did the sacred ceremony, because we have family history. And then I went back a couple of years ago, there's no house, that had been torn down and reframed, and I just had the feeling that it's not that I was dead, but the part of the culture that animated me, that was my history, was over, just in that one building. And of course it was up and down the street somewhat too.
I walked by that house often. It actually was there until pretty recently, maybe 2 years ago, finally.
Yes.
And it was so stately and set way back, the end of a driveway. It's how people lived. There was an entrance. There was a transition.
A transition.
Between, and that's an interesting notion, because the transition today between the vernacular and the sacred doesn't exist.
I agree with
you. But that home was set up to, you leave the world behind you, you go down the lane, through the door. That's how people lived, if they could live like that. And your grandmother did. It was really nice.
But you do something like that in your life?
I do
just
too.
Because that's who you are.
It's very quiet here. It's very, very visually quiet too. You see how many walls are empty, and my eyes can rest. And I don't accumulate a lot of things that I have to look at. It's quiet here.
It is quiet.
It's not noisy in any way.
But full.
Well, it's full and it's always changing. I always say this is a laboratory for living.
Because?
It's always changing. It's a laboratory. I'm experimenting. And then I always say life is a noble experiment.
And I say it's a gift. Sometimes
Yes.
I'd like to return it, but for the
doubt
most
it,
part,
yes.
it's joyful.
It's very joyful, but you wouldn't have the joy if you didn't understand the other. You need yin and yang, you need the dichotomy.
You know, everybody always says that, Michele, but personally, I don't lean that way. I think that whatever you do, I mean, whatever it is, you can have shades of yellow. You don't need gray to, you know, feature yellow. But life isn't like that. It is seasonal.
Arrive.
Yes.
You know, I mean, things are out of our control, whether it's,
Yes.
you know, an irritation of just being stuck in traffic.
How do you handle that?
That's so easy. For years, I and still do. I have a little pad in my purse that I make notes to remember things so that I don't, you know, worry about them, so to speak. But in the back of it, there was a little ledge, and I stuff a poem that I like. So I'd sit in traffic. I've memorized probably 24 poems.
Yes.
Why sit there and say, I'm in traffic, this is terrible, and when are we going to... It's not...
Misuse of
It's what I
time.
call death energy, too.
What do you mean by that?
It's energy that's not only not going anywhere, it's killing something in you. It's bad energy.
I'm just taking that in. That's a wonderful philosophy to live by. Edit it out.
So if I go on the
Misapply it.
subway,
Yeah.
for years they had poetry in motion, and all my doctors happen to be way uptown, so I'd get on the subway and I would stand in front of the poem. And actually, the editor for Poetry in Motion was Jordan, my older son's English teacher at Friends Seminary, Molly Peacock. And so I couldn't believe it. This was way after he was in school.
Yes.
And they had wonderful things. Emily Dickinson, hope is a thing with feathers that perches on the soul. It sings a tune without a word and never stops at all. Took me about 3 trips to the doctor to get that one.
Yes.
And then they move them. So then there was W.S. Merwin. It was a great one to my mind. Something goes through me like a needle through thread, or like thread through a needle. Anyway, what was so interesting is I wrote that down so I'd remember it. I ended up in Sun Valley for the Writers' Conference. I was a guest, and somebody had tickets to the Writers'
write
Conference.
well.
And then there he was speaking, and he recited that poem. And it's
But they
really
don't do
funny.
that anymore on the subways, do they?
No, they stopped it. But when they did,
It'd
and
be
then I
useful to
started copying,
resuggest.
bringing my own, because I got into the habit when I was in
A
situations.
spiritual uplift. Yes.
When I was in
passing
situations
time.
that I couldn't control, you know, a delayed train, people I didn't want to, you know, get involved with what they were doing. I wanted to focus on something while I was going.
How do you wall yourself up from negative energy, from death energy?
You can't wall yourself off. You can just fill yourself up with something else.
Oh, I love that. To counter.
Yeah, you know, it's just not leave a lot of room.
For it to come, for the receptacle to receive, because you've added else.
Yes, we have choices. We make those choices.
Interesting. Interesting. Something to think about. Because I've seen looks on people's faces, they're so taken down by just what happened to them. And I was talking with a friend yesterday after Marjarell, and some woman banged into me and threw me off balance and knocked my purse off. And at first I was like a little annoyed, and then I thought, may she go safely to wherever she is, you know, whatever she's worried about. My friend is all upset about it and this and that. Not useful. But I hadn't thought about this wonderful idea of adding a different scaffold inside and filling that with things that are life-affirming, or whether it's poetry, visual, or what have you, and let that be the life preserver.
That is a life preserver.
Against the vicissitudes or what happens around you.
Absolutely, it's available to everybody. Again, I'm aware that if your stomach is not full, I say this, so I say with all humility, it's available to everybody. But that said, who quoted in the New York Times editorial section recently that though this country is going through a difficult transition, it was Nicholas Kristof, I think, that the United Nations reported how many hundred thousands of people that had come up from the poverty level, that progress, and he mentioned the Steven Pinker book that I love, The Better Angels of Our Nature.
Yes.
Which is that we are still evolving, and consciousness was a great gift and a great moment. And curiously enough, part of our ability to be conscious, to think, comes from fire.
Because?
That when we tamed fire, we were able to cook protein, cook meat. It made the brain grow. You know, they first said we're a separate species because we have language and tool making. And then they realized that birds and chimpanzees have language, and that even crows can take a straw and make tools. So now they're down to fire, that the way we can make fire and use fire as what allowed our species to evolve. Isn't that
Thank you,
interesting?
Michele. So we've learned a lot from Michele. Start right there on fire and use that as not only for food, but for the creative spark inside of us. You can bring that to any part of her or your life, and she does for sure. Also, the idea that you fill yourself with some kind of nourishing, either poems or thing, counteracts what's around you. She self-nourishes by walks, and she takes life in small steps, so when she looks back, she has seen and accomplished a lot, but doesn't exactly know where. Also, she anticipates her death, and is making her future sort of words and contributions available to others by arranging these things with library and also here. And the thread of that is opportunity, creativity, responsibility, generosity, and spirituality. Please live your life like that. Go out and do something kind for someone you know today, tomorrow, all this week, and I'll see you next time. And thank you so much, dear Michele. I appreciated that.
Thank you. Very good.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadonsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadonsthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.